Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and a new edition of our online interview series. We want to get an update from US Critical Metals Corp, and Darren Collins, the CEO, is here with us. Good morning to Canada. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you again for having me as always.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, Darren. Critical metals like rare earths, like uranium, like lithium, etc., they are really hot on the spot, I would call. And we need a lot of them for the green, yeah, carbon emission free future. And you are really working on all those spaces, which is really interesting. And you just brought out a really interesting news where you said that you have done, yeah, a deal about the McDermitt caldera, which is nearby the Thacker Pass project. So please give us on that an update.
So it's been a busy summer. We've definitely been very active across exploration programs, both in Nevada and in Montana.
Hmm.
We'll be sharing updates on those. We have core in the lab right now, core from our drill program, but also sample results from Montana as well. So we'll be giving updates on that. But one of the big developments and one of the things we really brought together over the course of the summer here was a earn-in arrangement in the McDermitt caldera, as you mentioned. So we've picked up a partnership there. We're earning into the asset, and it's 19 kilometers away from Thacker Pass, which, I think the expectation is certainly that will be the first lithium from clay producing asset in the world. That will, in our opinion, generate a significant re-rating event to the valuation of assets within the caldera. So 19 kilometers away from Thacker Pass, good in earn-in terms, not a lot of cash up front, money going into the ground, not a lot of stock up front, but really earning our way into that and measuring the results along the way as, a means to evaluate the return that we're getting on our capital there as part of our overall capital allocation plan. But certainly a lot of favorable press on it. It's a great asset that Lithium Americas has there, and certainly we hope over time to develop out something that is similar in the scale and potential of what they have next door.
Okay, super. So would that mean that you could also benefit, let's say, from some infrastructure there? Or maybe you can
Well,
use it
that's
together?
That's always possible, and we are on one of the interesting facts about this acreage we've picked up is it's actually on the margin of the caldera, very similar to what Thacker Pass is. Now, again, Thacker Pass is obviously a much more advanced asset, feasibility construction phase anticipated to actually be producing lithium within the next 3 years or so, but that will obviously de-risk over the timeline as specific milestones are met. I think it's fair to say that they are, well financed to bring that asset to fruition in the form of production.
Hmm.
But certainly a good opportunity from our perspective to really get into a basin where I think yes, infrastructure is going to be very much built out. There's a lot of government support for this particular basin. It's in the north of Nevada, right on the essentially Oregon border. So we couldn't be more happy to have a good footprint in now what is the two most up and coming basins or established basins within the U.S. That is the Clayton Valley, the only lithium producing basin within the U.S., and our Clayton Ridge asset, and now in the McDermitt caldera as well, next to Lithium Americas, which will be, in our opinion, the first lithium clay producing asset in the U.S.
Okay, super. So how did that come that you are partnering now there? And I thought you can get first like 50%, but when you do some more work and spend some more money, you can top that up to 75%. Did I get that right?
That's correct. So it's capital over time. The first requirement is to get to 50%
Hmm.
on spend into the ground, and then subject to how all that plays out, we'll look to go up to 75%. We retain operatorship over the course of the project. We have our operating team that's getting geared up to get out there, do a big sampling program on a grid. And really the idea is to get this as quickly as possible to drill ready. So where we have well-defined delineated targets and then can ultimately permit that with the BLM. The nice thing with the BLM is before you have to do a full plan of operations, which takes a lot of time and money, of course, is that you're permitted up to 5 acres of disturbance area, similar to what we had on our Clayton Ridge asset, which means that we can do an expedited permitting program on an initial phase of drilling. And the idea is to get this ready, get the drills out there, and test it as soon as we can.
Okay, as soon as you can, that would mean this year still?
A little aggressive this year, and
Okay.
depends on good Mother Nature. It's often quite cold in Nevada. Not a lot of people understand that. They think, oh, desert, it must be 100 Fahrenheit all the time. Quite the contrary. It does get quite cold. So it really depends on how Mother Nature cooperates. It is a little bit more difficult and expensive to drill in the winter, but we will move it quickly as we can. It could be in the spring.
Super.
First steps to get it to drill ready and get the targets well defined. And
Oh,
I'm confident we can get that done this fall.
okay, super. To what depths you think you have to drill there? And let's say, do you have already an idea? I wouldn't say an estimate, but an idea. Do you want to do like 5,000 meters or less, or what are your game plans?
We really have to do the mapping and the sampling in order to really define what a program could look like. And that, of course, in the context of our permitted 5 acres disturbance that we'd anticipate getting on the permitting. So a little early to talk about what a program could look like. We have to do the work. But certainly the deeper holes we can drill, the better. We're seeing outcrops on surface, so we see visible lithium clay there. It's been very preliminary sampling results that came back quite favorable, almost 2,000 ppm on one sample. So we see it there. We think there's grade. We have to sample it a lot more, map it. But certainly holes of what would be a nice target would be a couple 100-meter holes on this, and really looking at good intercepts and good grades. So if we can put together something that looks like that, I think it's going to be really exciting for the market. Again, we have to do the work.
Okay, super. Let's move shortly to Clayton Ridge because you are drilling there, yeah. And I saw a press release. I think it was the 12th September, something around that, that you have completed approximately 1,000 meters, maybe more now. So how's it going there? And when we will see first results, of course.
That's what everyone asks, and certainly fair question. So the core is in the lab. Obviously, there's been a lot of exploration activity around the state throughout the summer. So I think it'll take a month or so to get those assay results back, but the core is in the lab. And what we actually ended up doing was to conserve capital and timing, frankly, was we used the 5 acres of disturbance area to test the central unit and the southern unit. Those have been the units with frankly, the higher grade. But now we have a northern unit to test. So we're looking at the timing on bringing back out a rig. We're going to remobilize the rig to test the northern unit. We likely do that here this fall. But we'll get the initial results. We'll evaluate those results. We have reclaimed some of the land associated with that initial 5 acres of disturbance. And then we'll use that reclaimed land to put the roads through to the north to get at that northern unit. So again, utilizing the allocation of disturbance area we have efficiently in a very smart way to conserve capital and get us the drilling that we need without having to do a full plan of operations here.
Okay, super.
And plan of operations can take a year to 18 months. A year would be even aggressive. It's likely an 18-month timeline, and somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 or more worth of expenditure and full baseline studies on flora, fauna, all these kind of things, which generally has to be done in the spring as well, because that's when everything is in bloom.
Okay, super. Let's talk shortly about Lamy Pass, your rare earths project. I think there's also something going on, right?
There is, and actually, so Lemhi is on the Idaho side of the Montana-Idaho border. The primary asset is actually on the Montana side. It's Sheep Creek, and we've been actually quite active there. We're going to provide a nice update to everyone about what's happening. But really, what we see is quite interesting with that asset is the fact that some of the historical results have shown quite elevated levels of gallium. And gallium, obviously very topical given what's been happening with the Chinese here, putting restrictions on export of that, that element. And that is of particular importance for the U.S., particular consequence to the U.S., because the U.S. imports 100% of its gallium and doesn't really have any domestic sources other than what I would personally consider a low-grade asset in the state of Texas. That is the only asset registered as a source of gallium within the U.S. with the USGS. So what we could have here, depending again how the sample results come back, we've been very actively sampling the area with the historic gallium results, as well as a broader grid looking for new areas of mineralization. But what we could have here, depending on results, is an asset of some pretty considerable national importance to the U.S. And we're going to see how that plays out here, obviously, as we get results and do more work. But the idea is that we have, a good understanding of the gallium, that we'll have the results on that this fall as well. And then also looking at, the neodymium, praseodymium, and other mineralization and elements that we've defined within the project area. The nice thing about this asset is it's exceptionally high grade, yet very low in thorium. So we are getting a very broad picture of the property. We're delineating targets. We already have some targets defined, and we're going to look to permit those projects on a plan of operations to ultimately drill that property. It's a property that takes a little bit more time, a little bit more patience, but certainly in the context of what there is within the U.S. at current point in time, it's quite evident that there is not a lot of these projects and that the U.S. needs more of them. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I could also imagine that you maybe benefit from IRA with that,
that is
because
quite.
rare earths is really sought after, right?
This is the truth. We're already getting some funding and work done by the U.S. Military Research Lab. They are looking very closely at this project through Montana Tech. They've been funding money to them as well to study the asset. So the right eyes are on it, and now it's just a matter of producing results, studying it more, and ultimately the big one will be drilling. I think the IRA in the United States is been an essential step forward for the administration in terms of addressing what is an issue that was foreseeable, frankly, for a sustained period of time. However, I also think that they could do more towards incentivizing exploration type activities, really discovery focused activities, where you're seeing a lot of the IRA money being allocated towards more type development work. So metallurgical studies, ultimately leading into construction, similar to what you're seeing with Thacker Pass. What I would love to see in the US, and we'll see if it comes to fruition, I've been talking about it, is a form of flow-through type financing. You're familiar with that perhaps from the Canadian side of things, where you get tax advantages for investing in flow-through shares for exploration development type activities. I think that would really incentivize American investors to get behind this and get the tax benefits that many Canadians enjoy for these type of activities. There needs to be more exploration and development capital spent within the U.S., and that's been the case for a long time. And that's why we set up this company.
Absolutely. I think that there's something similar going on with uranium. I mean, uranium is hot. Uranium price broke out. We are now, I think the broker price is at $72 already in the ask. And this is really interesting because we always said that over the last years. And now finally we are right, which is good. But I think also for the US is really supportive because they want to re-establish the uranium production, especially after the situation with Russia and Ukraine here in the US. So I could imagine with your Long Canyon uranium project, you might benefit there too.
So we do actually have a uranium project in the state of Idaho. It's been initially sampled. There's been some mapping work done on it. We'll look to do something with that asset at some point in time. Perhaps it could be a spin out and qualification of a shell and distribution of shares to our investors. But we, similar to what you've been talking about, the uranium opportunity has been one that a lot of people have spoken about for a good amount of time now. Certainly the market dynamics from supply demand suggested that we could have quite a uranium market here. I remember quite fondly the uranium market of 9, 10, 11, 12, where you had many companies just absolutely take off on appreciation of the uranium price, discovery, development type activities. It's very quite conceivable that we've got a good, uranium market now. People have made money, which is always nice, but I think, that could become even more accented in terms of opportunity as things play out, because uranium is obviously a very, very viable source of energy, which is in very high demand right now. We
Absolutely.
foresaw that as well, and we put an
Yeah.
initial starter asset in place
Yeah.
to position ourselves at an attractive structure and pricing. And we very well may look to add to that over time as well with additional uranium assets and position a spin out or something of that nature, which is part of the generative model of the company and the asset portfolio that we've put together.
Yeah, it makes also really sense. I mean, you have a lot of projects because you have also the Haynes Cobalt project, and I mean, let's say a company of your size with 4 or 5 projects might be getting a bit tough to come through everything. So I think that is a great idea to maybe work it that way. Last but not least, I love to get your opinion on that super volcano in the US with the 20, 30 million tons of lithium they're telling us they have found, I think it was a like zero hedge thing with over $1.5 trillion. To me, it sounds a little bit like more on the hope side. What's your opinion on that?
Well, there's certainly some aggressive language in that article. It's a well put together, well researched article, but I will say that when they start saying what could be the world's largest single deposit of lithium, I mean that is a very bold statement. Nonetheless, certainly does support the thesis for exploration and development of the McDermitt caldera, the caldera measuring 28 miles long by 22 miles wide, and they believe could contain around 20 to 40 metric tons of lithium.
Million.
Those are yeah,
Yeah,
million.
million tons. Yeah.
Those are some big numbers, and could result in some pretty significant production. When you look at the production around the world right now, really you have Australia, Chile, China, and Argentina that account for over 90% of the global production in lithium. When you look at the top 10, the U.S. isn't even on the list. Even friendly old Canada is number 8 with zero point 0.4 of 0.4% of global production. So it really is encouraging to see that there could be very large resources and reserves of lithium built out within the United States, which are going to be essential to addressing what is America's forecasted lithium shortfall. So there's a lot of good takeaways from it. Again, it's some very aggressive language as a could, but certainly drawing attention to the
Yeah.
basin, and that bodes well for our rationale for
Yeah.
doing this transaction as well.
Okay, super. So I think it's better to draw the attention to U.S. critical metals as you are, yeah, in the front of hopefully a series of news releases. This is what I heard out of our interview in the last 16 minutes. And yeah, so that is great. We look forward to your news. Thank you very much for the update. And maybe one last question is what is cash in the bank? Because you have a lot of work in front of you.
We do have a lot of work in front of us, but again, it's allocating capital in a smart way. So I think our last reported number on our financials was several $1 million Canadian. We will have to finance over time, as all exploration companies do. But we have a lot of good news flow here. We have a lot of good work that's been done. We have results coming out. So I think the capital that we've allocated to date has been well spent on the exploration and things of these natures. And investors have obviously paid for that information and those results. So, we'll look to get that out as soon as possible. And then we'll think about capital and financing
Exactly.
availability from there.
Okay, super. Hey, Darren, thank you very much for your time and highly appreciate it. And we look forward to your news flow. And I have a good feeling that we talk quite soon.
Okay. I look forward to it as always. Thank you again.
Super. Thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Darren Collins, the CEO of US Critical Metals. You heard it: rare earths, uranium, cobalt, lithium. So everything is in there, all the metals we really need desperately for the next decades. And yeah, the company is well set up, and a lot of news will soon, their news flow will soon start, probably already by the end of October, beginning November. And it's really interesting. And I like the idea with the spin out maybe of the uranium project, because as said, the company is not that large now to really do like 4 or 5 projects, but I like to that there is a concentration there. And also there are benefits benefiting from the IRA, so they are supported already by the government, by the military. That is fantastic. So check out the company. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Switzerland.